Am I audible? Okay, good. I'll just give it another minute while people just settle down. So let's get started. My name is Sukriti, as Usha introduced. I'm a technology evangelist with Microsoft, and I'll be talking to you about how you can build scalable web apps on Azure. Now, because it's just half an hour, I will probably I will prefer it if we have the questions towards the end, and I'll be around, so you can obviously reach me after the session. So quickly running through the PPT, then I'll show you the portal and walk you through how it can be done. This is the agenda for today. So I'll talk a little bit about what all language and platform support we have on Azure, then how you can scale your websites, what do you do for background tasks that you want to run while your website is running, what happens when you want to do dev and test while a site is in production, how can you monitor whether your site is up, what do you want to do, what is going wrong where, if there's any errors happening, how you can properly route traffic to your site. And the last thing that I'll talk a little bit about is resource groups. So Azure Web Apps is a platform as a service service that we provide on Azure, and it is a one-stop shop for you to create your web application on any platform, on any language, which is enterprise class. It scales as much as you want, and we have really good tooling available for dev and test. Now, there's a lot of text here, but let me just walk through a little bit of it, and in fact, I think I'll cover most of it eventually, so we can probably move on instead of me throwing a lot of text at you. So these are some of the customers and partners that we've worked with and we've collaborated with. Now, what is special about Azure Web Apps? It used to be called websites, so just to do a quick poll, have any of you worked with Azure websites before? One. Okay. Two maybe. 3, 4, okay. So just a few, 5, okay. So just a bunch of you. Then, so let me, actually, the animations will take some time. So what happens here? Now, you are spoiled for choice here. You have the cloud, your charging, your pricing and everything is based on how much you use. You can manually scale when you talk about scaling a website, if I'm a small e-commerce company, and I've just started, probably the number of customers that I have would be much lesser. So eventually, if I become really popular, if I'm booming, then I would probably want to expand. And then I don't have to manually scale, I can also auto-scale. And economics and everything, so these are just, slides that you probably already kind of know about. Now, more importantly, on this side, everything is on your terms. So whether you're a .NET developer, you're comfortable with Java, you're comfortable with Node.js, JavaScript, anything, we support that. We also support, if you have infrastructure on-premise and you have infrastructure that you've put up on the cloud, we support connecting those two. We have something called hybrid connections for that. And we also support cross other service providers and collaboration with Azure. So as I mentioned, there is freedom to use any language of your choice. There is no restriction whatsoever. You don't have to worry about, okay, because this is Microsoft, that misconception that a lot of people have that we have to use only Microsoft technologies, that's not valid anymore. Then when we're talking about, okay, so let me make this a little more real. Taking the example of an e-commerce company, suppose I am I have a company called Dashing Outfits, okay, and that Dashing Outfits is just an e-commerce company to sell women's apparel online. Now I have just started, right? What do I have to do to set up my website? How do I set up the entire thing? Where do we start? So I pick a language that I'm comfortable with. Sorry about that. So I pick a language that I'm comfortable with. I'll go choose that. When I create a website, I'll identify, okay, I want to create a website in, say, JavaScript, or I want to go create a website in .NET, for example. And then I will probably not be working alone. You know, I will have a team of developers, so I will want to establish some kind of source control. There is freedom here as well. You could use Git, you could use VSO, Visual Studio Online, which is previously called TFS. You could use Dropbox, any of those things. You could also use your local GitHub repository. All these things I will show you when I show you the portal. So these are some of the steps that you would typically follow in a development cycle. You identify your code repository. Now the team will sit and build the entire application. Now what happens? Before you initially go to production, you will have a lot of testing, a lot of QA that you will do, a lot of rigorous regression testing that you will want to do to make sure that your site does not break or collapse or is able to handle the load that comes to it. So we have, obviously you can do that in your closed environment without exposing it, putting it to production. But we have something called site slots that I'll talk to you a little bit more in detail about later. And site slots basically make sure that you have a live site with a similar URL with slight changes, and if you specifically share that URL with, say, you can identify, so I want only 10% of my load to go there just to test whether the site is functioning properly, if there's some feedback or something. If there's any failure, we can set failover mechanism. That's also possible. Then this will all come part of the test and everything. And the site slots that I was talking about. So from a test environment, you can immediately switch to a production environment by simply clicking a button called swap. So let's talk about Autoscale. So Dashing Outfits, now suddenly it became really popular. It became really popular in say the mid-30s to early 40s generation of women. They really loved the outfits that were coming out for them. So now I started only with Bangalore. Now I want to expand it to say customers in Delhi or say Mumbai or say across India. Let's think big. Why just India? I want to expand beyond India. I want to have customers in the US now. So typically, if you think about it, what would happen? I would have to, if the instance size of my VM is say 2 core, or I want to increase the compute power, if I know that the load is going to be higher, typically you would go manually scale. You will identify what is the load profile, whether it's predictable, whether it is seasonal, whether it's periodical, or in the bad scenario, if you're in e-commerce business, typically it's unpredictable. How do you know when to scale up and scale down? So we have something called Autoscale. Now, as I was talking to you about load profiles, the fourth one is where you don't want to be. The fourth one is actually, if you are, that is where you use Autoscale. So what Azure Websites does is, if you set up Autoscale, it will identify that the number of users that are hitting the Azure website, if it increases a certain number, say you can set metrics on the basis of compute, the number of people hitting the site and things like that, and you can identify, okay, beyond this, suppose the CPU percentage goes beyond 60 to 80, then I want to increase an instance. Now Azure will do that for you. You don't have to worry about when it happens. It could be in the middle of the night, middle of the day, middle of the week, middle of the month, it does not matter. Azure will manage that for you. Also, similarly for scaling down. So this is not just for scaling up. When you set that limit of CPU percentage, if you know that the load, the traffic coming to you is much lesser, it will automatically scale down to say if the CPU percentage being utilized is less than 60%, it will scale down the instances. So that is how it happens. This is just a screenshot of the old portal actually, where you see that you can set up schedule times, and you can, if you know that, okay, these typically my customers are all in the US, so they would access my website typically during the night, which is why I should scale up during the night time and maybe scale down during the day and save on cost. So that is one thing. Then what happens if, say, dashing outfits, every day I'm getting hundreds of orders, right? So those orders, they are being placed or not. And I could create this process of placing orders into my backend, into my database, make it asynchronous. So for that, what would I have to do? I would typically use queues. Now, if I'm using queues, Azure Web Jobs is like running a separate program side by side alongside the website, which just runs in the background. You can schedule them. You can make them event triggered. You can make them run continuously. So I would, soon as I have about, okay, I just got a timer of this thing. So soon as I have an order that comes in, I will have to make sure that that gets pushed to the backend. However, I want to also tell the user that is using it that, okay, your order has been placed, we will get back to you shortly. Typically what Flipkart a lot of times does this thing that, okay, your order is placed. Now for this we can use something called Web Jobs. What Web Jobs will do is, soon as the user hits the website, it is going to say, okay, fine, your order has been placed, and in the background it will trigger a web job. Now that web job, what it will do is, it will push that order into the queue and push it back to the website, database. Now site slots is what I was talking about. Sorry, I'm rushing through this because I really want to get to the portal and be able to show all of this to you. So site slots is basically what I was talking to you about from a dev test standpoint. Now you have staging environments, you have development environments, you have testing environments. Now there is no point, I mean, nobody really does that, right? I mean, if you're creating a test sample application website, it's fine if you just want to put it directly on Azure in single production mode. But when you're actually in a production environment in a company, you do a lot of testing, rigorous testing. So we have something called site slots, and in the standard subscription standard tier, you can have up to 5 slots. And what this does is, it's going to copy the exact same configurations of the website that you have into your staging environment, use the same SSL certificates and everything, and it is going to create a dummy, not a dummy, but like a live website available for you to test the load on. Suppose if I'm talking about dashing outfits itself, right? Now I have decided to expand to, I have a major UI update. I have decided to expand my functionality to, I am also going to start selling men's apparel. Now that is a major update to the website. I would not, some website that is already in production, I don't think I'll be losing out in business if I were to pull it down and then put another back up. So we have site slots. What we do is, I will put it in the staging environment. Gradually I will start moving, say 10% to 20% to 30% of my traffic to that website and see how it performs. If there are errors, if there are any problems, if there are any breakages, then I will be able to identify and redirect those into the main production website and fix them, and then again, same process continues. So like you can see here, typically 100% was going to the Azure production site. Now 80% will be routed to just the production site, and I can set this up in the portal. So 20% should go to the test, and if it doesn't work, it will automatically route it back to the main production website. So we have detailed app monitoring. I will just show this to you in the portal. I think that makes more sense. Let's get started. This is just a screenshot of what the app monitoring looks like. So you can set up tests and everything. You can set up multiple checkpoints. You can identify what are the number of requests that I'm getting, what are the number of errors that I'm getting when somebody's trying to hit my site. So, oh, okay. Traffic management, as I was talking to you about, suppose Dashing Outfits wants to, I have 3 regions where I have deployed my website. Now, I want to identify which one should the traffic go to. There are multiple ways of doing this. One could be that you identify whichever is the closest by region, and you route the traffic there. Or you could identify whichever one has the least traffic, that is the one that the user gets sent to. Things like that. So there are multiple ways of doing this, and automatically, so Traffic Manager, what it will identify is, okay, if some server is down, it will automatically, seamlessly, without any issues, redirect you to the next best option that you have for you. So let me jump right into the portal now. So this is the old portal. It's as for web apps, it's as simple as going to compute. You create a web app, and you have the option of doing quick create. Now with quick create, here you simply just enter a URL, you enter what is your app service plan. App service plan is just like a grouping mechanism for all your app services that you use. It could be mobile, it could be web, it could be APIs, it could be logic, anything. So I would create that. Or we have something called from gallery. So we have a lot of pre-created templates available for websites. Now I am an e-commerce company, I have e-commerce templates. If you want blogs, then you can, we have blog templates as well, WordPress, everything. This is taking a little while. So I think the internet is obviously giving me some trouble. Yeah, so as you can see, I have blogs, I have content management systems, CMSs, blogs, galleries and everything. So there's a lot of things available here. Now let's do this. Let's create one blog, and while that provisions and gets created, we'll continue. So let's create a WordPress. Let me call it Sukriti blog. And that's available, and I will create a new SQL database. Okay, so this is probably going to take a while. Actually, I just realized I think we're very short on time. Let me show this to you guys after we're done. For the time being, let's do this. I already have a testing website. I want to show you what all features are available. Now, this is the new portal. As we have, I'll just go to this testing 5678 is the dummy app that I created. I hoped I wouldn't have to use it, but since the internet is not really helping me out here, it'll take too long to create it and you'll have to wait too long. So when I go click on this, the first thing that I'll see is a lot of app monitoring information. So I think, yeah, it's going to take a little bit to load. But so we have the URL here. When I click on the URL, it's just a simple empty site. It's not really anything. It's just simple IS site. So it's not, there's no content here. I've not really deployed anything here. But that's how it is. Now, if I were to scroll down and I go to requests and errors. Now, if I click on this, it's going to show me detailed. It's going to show me how many requests I've had total. If I don't hover on the graph, it'll show me the total number of requests and everything. Now, it'll also show me if there are any alerts that I've created. So I've created a memory alert here. What the memory alert will do is it's going to identify if the memory is consumed is greater than 1 byte I set here so that we have a lot of reporting. So it's going to send me a mail. So because I'm the admin, I got emails last night and day before and everything, telling me, okay, the memory consumption has exceeded this much. And you have a lot of very proper monitoring available here. Now, getting back to scale. So I was talking about Autoscale, right? So if we go to settings, we have something called this tab called scale here. Now here, if you can see, I can scale by CPU percentage, or I can schedule and perform schedule performance rules. So what happens is I will, sorry, okay, I think that tab just got closed for some reason, sorry. So basically I get to pick how I want to make sure that my application scales out. So if I schedule basis some CPU percentage, it's going to identify that okay, this much CPU percentage has already been consumed. Now create another instance while this loads. Then when I talk about this was Autoscale. So when I talk about site slots, you can create site slots, and it's as simple as deploying them from Visual Studio. So when you're publishing an app, say here, so while we're, see, I can choose this, I can identify what is the target range. Now I say minimum it should be 7 and maximum it's 18 here. So it's going to scale up and down basis the CPU percentage. So that was Autoscale. Let me just discard changes. Now what I was talking to you about deployment slots. Now I've already created 2 slots right now, but typically you can add a slot here, you can create the name, you can enter the name and you can make sure, okay, this is the new slot, say Sukriti, let me call this. So you can clone the existing configuration. All the slots can have different configurations, so whether it is, if you want to copy it from the original one or not, that's fine. Let me just go ahead and do that. Now, while it does this in the background, let me go back. So if I were to, let me do this. This is the running slot, right? How simple is it to move from one slot to another? How simple is it? So I will go click on this. If the internet will cooperate. Yeah, so as I mentioned, this swap button here, which is just grayed out for a bit, this is as simple as it is. Now if I were to click on this URL, I know they're both empty sites because I just simply copy them, but if you look closely, this one has a different URL from the other one, which simply says testing5678 at azurewebsite.net. So these are 2 different live sites active at the same time. And you can redirect your traffic. I will show you how. So yeah, these are a bunch of, okay, so this data is currently not available, but there's a lot of events and alerts and everything that you can set up here. It will show you all these kind of details. I've not created them for this particular slot. Now, when I come to traffic routing, this is how you will identify how much load goes to your production site, how much goes to your staging site. So what I set up here is that for my testing staging, only 20% of my load should go. And for development, 5%, because I don't really want a lot of load to be going to my development side. And for everything else goes to my production by default. If I create 2-3 more slots, I can distribute the traffic even more. Okay. Now, as I told you about web jobs, right? So let me just open an empty web job. So web job projects are available. You can run scripts and everything, whichever one you want. For the purpose of this demo, I've just created a Visual Studio simple web job. All I have to do is go right click here in the project, say publish as Azure web job. Now there are multiple ways to doing it. You can put it in the same solution as a website, or you can just publish it as an independent web job. And so let me do this. Okay, I'm going to import a published profile. Now what I've done before is the testing website that I have. I've already downloaded the published settings for it, and I'm going to say OK. and I will say publish. So now what will happen is this web job will start showing up in my web jobs list here. So typically your web job could be event driven, whether as soon as there's an order that comes in, or you can make sure that it's just daily logs. You want to push daily logs at the end of the day at a certain time to the backend, you can do that as well. That is mainly the purpose of web jobs. And that's almost about it from my end. So we can talk a little bit about Traffic Manager, but I think I'm out of time. I have some time? Okay. I have 5 minutes, okay. So let me quickly talk about resource groups. Now what are resource groups? Typically when you create a website, you also have resources that come attached to a website. There'll be databases, there'll be middleware, there'll be your obviously front end. Now you want to put all of them in a similar, in a close-knit area so that they easily interact with each other. That is what resource groups are. This is just a feature of Azure that we have. You may or may not want to use it. So there are two. You can keep them independently depending on how you want to manage them. Whether you want to keep them separate, whether you want to manage your virtual machine separately, your website separately, your storage resources separately, or you want to put them all in the same resource group. That's up to you. So that is all I have for now. Now, is there any things? I mean, I think I'd like to open up for questions. Yes, please.
So that question regarding the Visual Studio Online. So what I have seen in Visual Studio Online, whatever the default template you are providing, I cannot update the bits. So do I do?
Why not?
It's not allowing. It says there is a restriction over there. So what is the plan of getting that updated in the Visual Studio?
I don't think that is that happens, but we can actually try this out after the session. Let's do this, okay? Because I don't think that's true. What is the point otherwise?
Seen that comment from the Microsoft saying that right now we do not allow it because of certain restrictions, but in future maybe we will.
We'll discuss this after the session. No worries. Anything else? Yes, please. He asked. Actually, if somebody can give him a mic, that will be best. So the question was that in Visual Studio Online, when you have templates, you're not allowed to edit the widths, right?
Yeah, it's a customization of the width.
So that being the online hosted model, you don't at this moment there's no option of you changing anything because it's a hosted, right? Microsoft is doing all the infrastructure. So you can just use it. You don't know what to use it plan, but as of now, there's no way to change anything on the Studio templates. You just use it. So you have plenty of templates, all the same kind, Agile, Scrum. Just use those templates and then pretty much. But yes, as you said, there are user voice forums where you can actually go in and say this is a problem, you can install it, it goes to the back burner and then somebody will make some user releases. In fact, every 2 weeks or so, Visual Studio Online is getting updates. You don't know it because they keep patching it, but there is a release happening every 2 weeks. So don't know when it will be big. Right. So I have one
more question. So hello. So I want to try Windows 10, but I do not see a default template in the Azure. So Mm-hmm. Right. So I cannot experiment on Azure. That's what you mean to say?
So what I'm trying to say is in Azure itself, Windows 10 itself is not a mainstream. So that's why you don't have any VMs or anything that you can put up on Azure to make it run.
Okay. Thank you.
So thank you so much for those questions. Thank you, Sukriti. Let's give her a round of applause for that very valuable and insightful session.